Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast brought to you by our friends over at Briar-Greaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on. So whether it's auto, homeowners, flood, boaters, or business insurance, Briar-Greaves Insurance are the best people in the business to work with. For more information, visit briargreavesinsurance.com or give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. It is a Monday edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend as we are back and better than ever. As we're going to talk today about the Bucs offense and specifically their depth. Where do they have the best depth? Maybe where are they the weakest at? We're going to go position by position, breaking it down. Maybe talk a little Josh Grizzard as well. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Scott Reynolds is out today, so joining us is a very special guest. He's been on Pewter Report airwaves before, but it is Michael Pless from Real Bucs Talk, the outstanding YouTube channel and Bucs content, film breakdown, all of that good stuff. Michael, thank you so much for joining the show. It's great to be talking to you. How is everything? How's life?
It's going great, man. I appreciate you having me on. This is awesome to be a part of. So yeah, looking forward to talking about the Buccaneers offense. And, they definitely have some key depth and a lot of good areas to have it in. There's also some weaker spots, but again, you can't have depth everywhere. You just gotta, do the best you can. But yeah, really excited. This has been a pretty good offseason so far, and looking forward to training camp and preseason.
Yeah, I'm counting down the dates until training camp returns. The Bucs actually, their tickets went on sale today for to get to the open public training camp practices. I shouldn't say went on sale. I think it's free. But anyway, shout out to everybody in the comments as well. Tom says, "Gonna be a great show." You're damn right it is, Tom. Money Making Mitch says, "What up, Pewter people?" And Steven Stansfield saying, "What up, Michael and Matt?" Who's watching from New Jersey. Also Nathan Elliott, of course, in the comments as well. So yeah, we're going to talk all about the Buccaneers offense today. Josh Grizzard as well. But let's start with Baker Mayfield. We know the depth at quarterback. It's going to be Baker Mayfield starting with Kyle Trask backing up. I know there was a little bit of a conversation about, can Kyle Trask get pushed for the backup role? But now with Michael Pratt not participating, and hopefully he'll be back for training camp, seems like it is Kyle Trask's job to lose at the backup position. But when talking about Baker Mayfield, I guess let me ask you this, because we know he's going to be the starter. How much better do you think Baker Mayfield can be? And where do you put him in the echelon of quarterbacks right now? Because there's a hot button discussion about who's in the top 10. Some lists are absolute garbage. There's the overhype of Justin Herbert, which I've talked a lot about a lot on this show. Just give me your overall general thoughts about Baker Mayfield and your opinion on him going into the season.
Yeah, I think he's one of the, top half quarterbacks, especially in the NFC when you look at the quarterback outlook. But he's definitely a top 15 quarterback. He's deserving starter. I think he's a very good quarterback. The numbers last year were, they were top notch. He put up really good numbers as far as passing statistics goes. You want to see, obviously he's talked about it where you want to avoid the turnovers, or at least try to eliminate the interceptions, the fumbles, the sacks. That's, those are things that he has to improve on. And that's something I think they're counting on with this continuity that has come in with the offense. They're thinking, okay, maybe he can learn to get the ball out faster because he knows the offense and can progress and take his game to a newer heights. I think he's still progressing. You look at what he's done so far here with the Bucs. Really 2 good seasons so far. So you're hoping that continues to traject upwards. And I think he's got the opportunity to do so when we talk about some of the skill position players. But yeah, as far as backup quarterback goes, I think it is Kyle Trask. I think it's kind of in the same situation where you look at, Tom Brady and Blaine Gabbert, they're just not really putting a lot of emphasis on that backup quarterback. They're not expecting their starter to get injured. I think if Kyle had to play some snaps, you would hope he can keep things afloat and maybe they can squeak out some games. That's going to depend on if the defense is going to be better this year. But Baker Mayfield, I think the Bucs have to feel good about him, and obviously they want him to be a Buc for the the near future and also long term as well.
It's so interesting with Kyle Trask, right? Because he became the first Buck to ever be drafted by the team and then signed to a second contract, and yet he hardly played in a regular season game.
Yeah.
He's almost got the Ryan Griffin journey.
Mhm.
Ryan Griffin, like being on the Bucs for so long, never playing in a game, dominating in the preseason. I wouldn't say Kyle Trask has dominated in the preseason, but it's so foreign with Kyle Trask because he hasn't played in any games. I'm curious if he had to start a couple of games this year for the Bucs, if something happened to Baker, how confident are you in him if he's got to, say play 5 games? Like what do you think his record would be?
Yeah, it's tough to decide because it just depends on like what's available around him.
Sure.
If he has, if he has the full arsenal, and it's just him replacing Baker, then I think they could do well enough to at least, go 500 or at least split a couple of games here and there. And you hope if an injury does happen, it's nothing long term.
Right.
That's the thing. But I think Kyle has enough talent to run the offense, and you have a good running game to lean on if necessary. It would probably change some things of how they call it, but you have a very good offensive line in front of him, so he would have time to throw the football. And we'll see. I think it would just be a different looking offense than what we're
Yeah.
normally used to.
So Baker has been here for 2 seasons. He's going into his third year, but his second year in the 3-year contract
Right.
that Baker Mayfield signed after his comeback season, if you will, his first year with the Bucs. If you're Jason Light, are you trying to get an extension right now with Baker Mayfield, or do you think that he's got to have one more, big time season to, get that extra bump in his payday that, he certainly lived up to last year, but there's a reason why there's contracts in place in the first place.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely have discussions. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to, figure out, what they could get right now, and just kind of wait and see. But I think it's probably something they lean towards doing next offseason, just because he does still have the 2 years left. But yeah, I mean, definitely it's going to be talked about, and you hope he can continue to put up, the type of production he did last year and hopefully better. And right now the Bucs have him on a discounted value. So when you think about it, it's good. It's good position for the Buccaneers because it allows them opportunities to, spend money elsewhere. So yeah, we'll just have to see. And I think, Baker's not going anywhere from the Bucs perspective. They want to keep him. Jason Light has raved about him. So obviously they're going to find a way to make things happen.
I legitimately think Baker is going to be a Buck for life, or at least for the rest of his career. Just the way that he's, ingratiated himself in the community. I mean, Ben Bredesen just got married the other day, and Baker was front and center, like with all the pictures and stuff, if people saw on social media. So I'm excited for Baker this year. I think his touchdown numbers are certainly going to go up. The only reason why maybe his passing yards don't go up is because of how great the running game is. You mentioned that a moment ago. Before we talk about the running backs, I do want to talk about Josh Broussard real quick. Sure. What do you think he'll bring to the offense this year? And specifically, like, how is he going to elevate Baker Mayfield's game, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, Baker's been kind of up and down with like the vertical passing game. And that's something I know you guys have talked about here. And it's something, the element where they're trying to create more explosive plays in the passing game. And that's something where Baker's been kind of hit or miss in his 2 years here. So hopefully that can improve. If that does, then this offense could be very dangerous. But I think, utilizing the running backs, utilizing the tight ends, I think you could see a little bit more, especially in the run game and utilizing them, over the middle of the field. That's going to be an area where they want to attack, but also just trying to set up more vertical passing game. I think that's going to be the main difference. Probably some different usage as far as your motions and stuff like that. But pretty much the formations, the personnel groupings, those are pretty much going to stay the same as far as what we've seen, but probably a little bit more Miami-esque being brought along here. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he's in a good spot with the addition of Emeka Egbuka, who we'll talk about here shortly. But yeah, I think they're in a really good situation for him.
Yeah, me too. I love that he has a Yale background, so he's a football nerd.
Yes, yes.
No shame to any of the football nerds out there, Yale specifically. But I also love that he was here last season. I think that's an element that gets overlooked a little bit. But Baker has never had continuity in his career, going from Cleveland to the Panthers to LA and now the Bucs. And he had it a little bit with Liam Cohen, and then of course we all know what happened. He's now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. But the fact that he was here last season operating third downs, which the Bucs were fantastic at it, very successful, best in the league, actually. For him to already be here, know what he's got, and then you add in Emeka Egbuka and even Tez Johnson. I'm excited to see what's in the bag for Tez Johnson this year. Having a guy that there's not that like getting to know you phase. There's not that, oh, well, Mike likes it this way versus Chris Godwin likes it that way, because he's already been there. That's already been established. I think that's super important for the Bucs offense this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, he's been in the building. He has familiarity with the staff, and most importantly, the players. So he understands, like, okay, these guys like these certain calls in this type of situation. So that's going to be important that they have that type of background to operate from. And, you've heard the players and coaches talk about this offseason where the foundation is pretty much there. Now they just kind of continue to build and add things and see, new dynamics. I know Josh Grizzard has talked about watching, a lot of college tape and trying to incorporate some of that into his scheme. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. We'll see. Hopefully, I don't know if they'll be able to reproduce what they had last year. I think it's going to be in different ways, but you just hope they can still maintain. If they can be at least top 10 offense, I think you're sitting very nicely, especially with the improvements that are going to come on defense. But offensively, they have everything they need when it starts with the quarterback and you have the right offensive mind in place in Grizzard. You just hope, they can get over those little hurdles, kind of similar to what Dave Canales had early on. You hope that the growing pains are a little bit shorter and they can pick it up and start fast.
Yeah, I hope a lot of call-it periods and going live in practice will kind of help expedite the process for Josh Grizzard. Because I do agree. I think there are going to be a little bumps in the road, as we saw with Dave Canales. I think that's a great point right there. But let's move on to the running back room. And it's interesting because I think, quarterback is such a different animal, but I think there's a legitimate argument between running backs, wide receivers, and offensive line, which we will all talk about. There's like a legit argument between those three position groups to say that they are the deepest or they are the biggest strength of this team. But let's talk about the running backs: Bucky Irving, Rachaad White, Sean Tucker, even some undrafted free agents in the mix as well. Give me your overview of the Bucs running back room. How excited are you for this group? What do you want to see different? What are your expectations? I know it's 10 questions, but take it in any direction that you want to.
No, I'm very excited about the running back room. I think it's a very strong group. I think it's probably the best group to withstand if something happened to Bucky Irving, as far as having Rachaad White, who has been a starter. Sean Tucker has seen significant snap increase over his time here. And then you have some, interesting undrafted guys like DJ Williams, and I think forgetting the other kid's name, Josh
Williams. They're both Williams.
Yeah, the other Williams from LSU. I think Josh Capo actually did a great article on him recently. So yeah, the running back room is very stacked. I think you have still a lot of upside in that group with Bucky Irving, and hopefully he can improve his game. And you see Rachaad White continuing to progress as like that third down type of change of pace type back that can be a starter if need be. I think the improvement of the scheme and how they run the football, the variations of gap versus zone, that has helped tremendously. And you have really perfect fits. Sean Tucker gives you something different than the other two. So it's just a very good variety I think it's a very good room. And obviously, you want to see maybe Sean Tucker get more involved, and hopefully he can improve and maybe take over after the expected Rachaad White. Maybe if he leaves next year, that remains to be seen. But I think you're in really good hands with those first three, and you have some upside at the bottom of the roster as well.
Yeah, I'm excited about Josh Williams, the running back from LSU, because Jason Light would not stop talking about him. Todd Bowles has mentioned him. Even the offensive line and Bucky Irving as well have mentioned him. So, that's going to be one of those guys. We know how it is with preseason. The starters don't play. You're crossing your fingers to saying stay healthy. So you got to find something to latch onto a little bit. And I think Josh Williams will certainly be that guy in the preseason when a lot of the main guys aren't playing. You mentioned Sean Tucker a moment ago. I did want to ask you about him, and specifically, what do you want to see, like more of a rotation with the running backs? Because Sean Tucker, he had the incredible game with the Saints, but Sean Tucker has also had the ability, we've seen in the preseason a little bit, he can take it to the house on plays where, like Bucky Irving several times, and we all love Bucky. He's fantastic. I can't wait for Raymond James Stadium to be chanting Bucky until a duck comes along. But there are many times Bucky was an inch away from scoring a touchdown, but got tackled at the 1 yard line. The big run against the Giants, awesome play, sensational play, but eventually he got caught after going over midfield when he ran it from like the 3 yard line. Sean Tucker's the guy that finishes the job. He gets to the end zone. And there was a lot of conversation about should Sean Tucker get more playing time. It inevitably, it didn't happen. Yeah, he got a couple of handoffs against the Giants, but do you want to see more of a rotation with this running back room?
I mean, in a perfect world, it would be ideal, but it's hard because you want to make sure, your best players are out there. Bucky Irving, deserves to get majority of the carries. Rachaad White, you want to see him involved in, the passing concepts, the screen game. I would love to see them all three out there at the same time. I think they did that. They did that one time against the Kansas City Chiefs. They only ran one play. It didn't go anywhere. It was I think a negative 1 yard loss, but they've run a lot of the pony personnel where they have the two running backs. And I think you'll see a lot of that this year because why not? It works. So they're going to keep doing that. With Sean Tucker, I think you're hoping he can take those steps forward, especially in pass protection, and maybe be utilized on third downs, because when he gets the ball in the passing game, like you said, he's dangerous because in space, he's so athletic. He can either run by you or he can he can run through you as well. So he's just got a little bit more juice to his game, like you were mentioning. Bucky Irving is awesome. I mean, they're all three great in open field. So I think it's a really great problem to have. Unfortunately, they're not going to get all the same type of, snaps or carries. It just really depended on the game situation. If it was me, ideally, the Buccaneers are in the lead going into the fourth quarter, and that's where I would start to utilize Sean Tucker a little bit more. And you could use a little bit more, ground and pound, but then he also has that ability to break one and really break the game wide open. So it will be interesting to see what type of, if they do decide to do something like that, whether it's a rotation, but really Bucky and Rachaad are going to carry the load.
Yeah, for sure. I love the pony package. I love all the different iterations you can run out of it as well. Like the Chris Godwin touchdown against the Lions in week 2, that was out of the pony package. And, they faked the screen and then, Chris went deep on it. So I'm a huge fan of the pony package. And of course, Pink Pony Club, that's the hit song now. I'm sure that'll be playing in the stadium and at one point or another. And it's almost Detroit Lions-esque a little bit with wanting to ground and pound to close out the game. And I think the Saints game was a perfect example where like they hardly threw the ball in that fourth quarter. And when they did, it was like a screen or a short pass, something that wasn't in harm's way. And I think that would be an ideal way to really close out games. So I can see with Josh Broussard too, like being so dependent on the opponent, as you just mentioned. Like one game could be the Rachaad White game because it's just geared that way a little more. The next game could be the Bucky Irving game, and then Sean Tucker may have his moment. I just want to see a little bit more of Sean Tucker because he is available. And I think it'll help with Bucky too, because Bucky's a tiny guy. Like he didn't start last season. Like he took him a little bit to really take the reins as the main running back. But I think if there's one weakness, if you will, with the running backs, Rachaad White is fantastic as a pass blocker on passing plays. But if he's unavailable for a game, I don't really know who is going to be that third down guy because, the Commanders playoff game when the Bucs got bounced in the first round, they had Bucky on some third downs and he got steamrolled in pass blocking. And he can catch the screen passes and the swing passes, and that's great, but that's not the most difficult type of throws. I'm not sure how much of a legit route runner Bucky is, and the same with Sean Tucker with the pass blocking in that situation. So I feel like if there's any brief weakness to the running backs, to me, it's who's another pass blocking third down running back if Rachaad White isn't available or if he's not here after the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is, I agree with that. I think with Rachaad, he kind of has the capability to do everything. He just maybe not do one thing as well as Bucky does, which is running the football. Bucky's just an ability to create is just very explosive, his quickness and obviously, but the downsides with Bucky and Sean is the pass protection game, ability to add that other element in the backfield. And that's something you want to see hopefully can improve, because if it does, then it allows your offense to be more unpredictable, more versatile. And that leads into Josh Williams, like he has an opportunity to maybe make the roster. And that's where, you're providing that competition for Sean Tucker. Like Sean Tucker isn't guaranteed. I know a lot of fans love him and I'm one of them too, but it's not a foregone conclusion that he's on this roster because there's other parts of his game where this is why he's the third running back on the depth chart.
Yeah.
So those are factors that you have to follow suit. But he also provides that big boost on special teams. I really like him as a returner. So
it's funny. I was going to ask you, what were your thoughts about him as a kick returner?
I thought he did well. I thought, there were some moments where he messed up. He had mistakes, but to have the explosive returns that he did have, I think it gives you someone back there that, other teams have to be afraid of. So that's important. It's something to, take away as we get into preseason to keep an eye on.
Do you think this is the last hurrah for Rachaad White in Tampa Bay, or just the way that the NFL is going now, you kind of need a running back committee? So I'm sure Rachaad wants to be the top guy somewhere else if he can be, but not a lot of teams and offenses really do that anymore.
Yeah, that is true. I think the Bucs would love to bring him back on a contract extension. It just depends on the value, the market, what type of deal can they come up with. But I think the team loves him. I think they really like him as far as a player, and obviously he's a big part of what this offense does because. Like you said, they use a lot of that 21 or pony personnel, and he's a factor for that. And also just his pass protection is top notch. So to keep Baker, Baker's one of probably your most important player on offense. To keep him upright, that's a big deal. So to have Rachaad out there, that does factor into it.
It's crazy to me that Rachaad White is the longest tenured running back in that room. I still remember when he came in and I'm like, he should get as much playing time as Leonard Fournette. And, now we're all screaming for Bucky and Sean Tucker, and understandably so. I mean, I think Bucky has the ability to be a top 5 running back in the league, this year. Obviously you got your Derrick Henrys and Saquons, and we'll see what happens with Christian McCaffrey. But man, Bucky is just like, even the other day I was watching Bucky highlights and stuff like that. The dude is just so thrilling as a running back.
Oh, he's fun. Yeah. Just electric. Like any play he gets, you can't count him out. He just has the ability to, I think a lot of fans don't see or probably don't realize at first, but how many yards he gets before or even after contact, but like he'll be able to make a negative play into a positive play.
Yes.
And that is so underrated, to not have a negative 2-yard rush and you turn that into a 4-yard gain. That's a huge play for any offense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we almost take for granted that the first guy is going to miss when they're trying to tackle Bucky Irving, because he does it in such a Like, it doesn't look like he's trying. He's obviously trying very hard, and he's great at what he does, but he does it so flawlessly, which I think is a testament to how great of a rookie year that he had. Of course, 4th-round pick, another diamond in the rough for Jason Light. But you can never have enough good players in the running back room at wide receiver as well. It's good to have that insurance of talent that the Bucs do on offense. And if you are working with insurance people, there's nobody better to work with than Briar Greaves Insurance. If you're a longtime podcast listener, you probably remember the late, great Mark Cook talking about Briar Greaves Insurance. Pewter Report's Scott Reynolds, also Bucs general manager Jason Light, has been Briar Greaves customers for years, and there simply is not a better insurance company in the Tampa Bay area. So visit BriarGreavesInsurance.com to see for yourself. Briar Greaves Insurance is family-owned, and their main goal is helping people. They want to help people find the right insurance policy for you and your family. Whether it's home or auto, boating insurance, or business insurance, turn to Briar Greaves and find out why their personal touch and customer service sets them apart. The days of waiting on hold to speak with an insurance representative that you don't even know are over. With Briar Greaves Insurance, you'll have a relationship with your agent who can answer your questions and advise you on the best policies. As 2 recent hurricanes have shown all of us that live in the Tampa Bay area, there is a cost to living in paradise. Briar Greaves can help make sure you have the right hurricane and flood insurance to make sure you and your home are protected. Visit BriarGreavesInsurance.com today. That's Briar, B-R-I-E-R, Greaves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S, or call their office today at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166, and tell them that Pewter Report sent you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Jason Light uses Briar Greaves. And if you love Jason Light, you want the same insurance people as Jason Light. So shout out to our friends over at Briar Greaves. We have Michael Pless from Real Bucs Talk on the show today for those that are just joining in. Before we talk about the wide receivers, let's get to a couple of super chats, starting with Mike Wells. Thank you, Mike, for the $5 super chat, who says, I put our overall offensive starters and depth against any offense in football. Also really excited to see Josh Williams in preseason and training camp. I mean, outside of maybe the Bengals and certainly the Eagles with, what they have at wide receiver and running back, I think the Bucs are top 3 in talent alone. Now you got to put it together, and Josh Broussard is a first-time play caller, but where would you put the Bucs overall offense in the pantheon of the rest of the league?
Yeah, it's crazy when you take out Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Really, like, those are your oldest players. Like, everyone else is under 30 years old. So it's still a very young team. Like, I was looking at it. I think the Bucs are still like the second youngest roster. I don't know if that's true. I think that was maybe last year, but you look at this team and just like the core pieces that they have in place, Baker, Bucky, Mike, really depends on like Chris Godwin. If he's healthy, then that takes your offense to a new level. So yeah, to stack it up against the other offenses around the league, I think the Bucs are right there, easily, definitely in the top 5 of offensive units to work with. And yeah, I mean, we haven't even got to their strongest positions, which we're about to get to.
Yes, we are. I think a lot of people, if you ask, like, where do the Bucs have the best depth, the answer is probably wide receiver. I mean, Jason Light said so as well. And Todd Bowles was asked that at practice recently. And he's like, well, obviously it's wide receiver. So they feel that way as well. We'll get to a couple comments too. Malcolm Hawthorne says Buccaneers could go anywhere from 7-9 to 11-6. Yeah, it's interesting with this team. At times, Michael, it feels like that the Bucs beating themselves has been the biggest culprit with some of these slides that they've had each year. And to me, that's one of the biggest things is that they can't, if they want to be a legit Super Bowl contender, reach a conference championship game for the first time since they won it all in 2020, they can't have that 3 to 4 game losing streak that they've had the last 2 years, because I think the Bucs can certainly compete for the number 1 seed in the NFC as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have the roster, they have the pieces. especially in place on offense. And I think the key for that is, over the last couple of years, that skid has really come where they had injuries at certain spots. Had some things, especially in 23 where the offense wasn't really up to par yet.
Yeah.
Defensively, they were doing some things, and then last year is just the secondary was depleted from week one. Like you never had the starting secondary out there other than week one. That was it. Like they didn't play together at all
Yeah.
year. So that hurts you. And then offensively losing Mike and Chris the same time. And trying to find ways to score points, which they did, but still there was, inconsistencies there. And you're just hoping this year they can stay healthy and find that killer instinct that, Todd Bowles and company have been talking about. And, just got to take it week to week and hopefully find yourself in a situation where you can get some winning streaks and avoid, the 2, the 3, the 4 game losing streaks. Like that's the stuff that you just can't happen. And really, when you think about it, this team should be able to find some comfortability, especially towards the end of the season, where they don't have to fight their way in for the division title. It's something that they should be able to clinch earlier than, the last week of the season.
You are talking my language because I've been saying for a while now. I think if the Bucs again want to take that next step, they shouldn't be playing in week 18 to clinch the division and
Right.
get their ticket into the postseason. They honestly should be doing it maybe against Carolina in week 16 on the schedule right there. And funny enough, just like last season, I think the schedule really opens up for the Bucs the last month of the year. I mean, November 30th, they go against the Cardinals. I actually think the Cardinals are going to be a little bit better than what people are kind of projecting this year. I think year 2 with Marvin Harrison and Kyler's so up and down that, it's going to, last year it was down, so it's got to bounce up this year. But I mean, we all know what New Orleans is. The Bucs on paper are better than Atlanta, and then Carolina, Miami, and Carolina again. I mean, that's a good momentum worthy schedule to, propel yourself for the postseason, but they got to make sure they get the job done. One other comment I want to get to real quick. Bat W says, I'm sure Grizz will be great, but might have a warm-up period. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit before. Hopefully the growing pains happen in practice and it doesn't show in the regular season. But let's talk about these wide receivers, the strongest group for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, Josh Broussard is going to have an impact on this group as well. But when we talk Bucs wide receivers, there's certainly a conversation to be had about Emeka Egbuka. But when you hear Bucs wide receiver, I immediately think of Mike Evans. Yeah, I think he gets 1,000 yards. Sorry, I was I'm just glazing over Mike Evans at the moment.
I do that too.
Yeah, I think 1,000 yards. I don't even think it's a question. I think it's more of when is he going to get the 1,000 yards? Is it going to be dramatic in the last game of the season, or can he get it a little bit earlier? How do you think Josh Broussard will go about utilizing Mike Evans this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think you're going to see it probably in a lot of variety of ways. Like he's, I think, best utilized when they run a lot of like dig routes for him, over the middle, creating that type of space, the end breakers, the comeback routes. He does a lot of good things there. Over routes going, from the slot to the other side of the field. I think with Broussard, you're probably going to see a little bit more vertical shots. So you're hoping, the yards per catch goes up. That will help him get more yards early and often. So I think it's probably not a question of, can he get 1,000 yards? I think it's just, how much more over 1,000 is he going to be? I think he is in a spot where the other players that are going to be next to him is going to help him so greatly, because defenses are going to struggle to just focus on Mike. Now they're going to do it regardless because Mike is the best receiver on the team and you want to try to take him away. But I think after some time, the eyes are going to shift elsewhere. And that's going to open up things for Mike Evans to get more single matchups, because when he gets man coverage, we see how deadly he can be. I think he got it against the Chargers last year, and that was one of his better games.
That was.
I mean, he's just so dangerous when he gets, the right matchup. So I think more vertical shots will definitely help him as far as getting more yards and hopefully, be over 1,000 before the last game of the year.
Yeah, that was awesome what happened against the Saints, but I don't want to deal with that stress again. I want it to
Yeah.
be done like week 16, maybe even week 15. Who knows how
Yeah.
it'll go? And yeah, it's funny. Mike doesn't talk like a ton the way that like Chris Godwin will speak every week and
Yeah.
Tristan Wirfs and stuff like that. But when he does talk, at least a couple times a year, he's like, "Yes, I love when teams play me man to man because I don't get
Mhm.
it that much, but when I do, I
Yeah.
go off." And I still don't understand why teams try to go one-on-one with him unless you got a top corner in this league, which will make Jets Bucs week 3 a lot of fun because you got Sauce
Yeah.
Gardner. We'll see how the Jets and Aaron Glenn go about it, and I know Aaron Glenn and Todd Bowles are pretty close as well. But is it fair to say that this unit right now with Mike and Chris and Emeka Buka and Jalen McMillan,
Mhm.
is this the best group that they had since 2020 when it was Mike, Chris, AB? I know Gronk's a tight end, but like as far as the
Mhm.
arsenal of weapons, I think it's one of those things again where Mecca Ibuka might be fantastic because you're going to go, oh, I'm going up against the fourth string corner. Like, okay, I'll just put my hand up and throw me the ball. I think the group is that damn good.
Yeah, I don't yeah, it's tough. I mean, yeah, the 2020 weapons were ridiculous. I mean, you had veterans at every spot and
Yeah.
obviously, very talented. Gronk is going to go down probably as the best tight end probably of all time. Like he was that good. And AB when he was playing and he had his brain, screwed on right, he was a good player. But this group very comes close to that, I would say. The weapons are there. I think Jalen McMillan very underrated.
Yeah.
Like I think he's going unnoticed this offseason. I think that's going to be a surprise to other teams, or not just other teams, but fans, because he made a lot of progression late last year, and I think that will continue. And with him and Abuka, and you hope Chris Godwin can be healthy. I mean, it's very dangerous, and not to mention like the guys behind those
Yeah.
people, like those four, you still have talented receivers that can come in and make something happen. So it's a very good group. And yeah, I can't wait to see how they utilize, all these pieces.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit of a trickle down effect. We know Mike's
Mhm.
wide receiver one, and obviously Chris Godwin on 20 other teams is wide receiver one. But I do
Right.
feel it's a trickle down effect between Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, and Emeka Ibuka as well. Everyone said that Emeka Ibuka is a carbon copy of Chris Godwin, but the reason I say it's a trickle down effect because we don't know if Chris Godwin is going to be playing in week 1. I think the fact that he's not even running outside, or at least wasn't running outside when we were at mandatory minicamp last week. I don't know if he's going to be ready for the start of the regular season. I think this is a different situation than in 2022 when he was coming back from the torn ACL, and
Right.
the Bucs did not have the talent then that they do now. So he
Yeah.
got rushed back a little bit. How long do you think the Bucs can go without Chris Godwin if he does have to miss a little bit of time, with relying on certainly Mike, but for me, Jalen McMillan and Emeka Ibuka? And do you see McMillan as wide receiver 3, or do you see Ibuka as wide receiver 3?
Yeah, I think with Godwin, I think they would be okay to probably survive like the first month of the season.
Mm,
I wouldn't be surprised like if they decided to, like, they get to the final roster and they're like, well, he's just not 100%. They decide to put him on the short term, IR,
yeah,
and bring him back after, week 4 or what have you. I think they're in a very good spot because Jalen McMillan and Abuka. I think Abuka will probably be the wide receiver 3. It's kind of like they're both going to play. So it's
yeah,
kind of like 3A, 3B. Mecca is just so
right.
talented. I think he's going to bring a lot of different things because he can play outside or inside. Same thing with McMillan. They give you a lot of versatility there. So it's just a really good problem to have, and it's going to create that competition. So with Mike, Jalen, and Emeka, I think you have to feel confident. And maybe, we talk about some of the other guys here, like Trey Palmer. maybe he has type of a resurgence in this offense because there is more vertical, aspects, and maybe that's something that opens him up a little bit more. I know, like, Sterling Shepard still on the team. I think he's a decent vet. I see him as a very good fifth receiver option, and if he is that, then that's fine. Tez Johnson, I think they have a lot of high hopes for. He's kind of like, it's going to be between him and Cameron Johnson, like that. They're trying to find that little gadget type player that they can utilize, quick underneath option that can make people miss, get the yak yards, do some vertical aspects. But they have a really good room, from 1 to 6 or however many receivers they're going to keep. That will be the interesting tale. Like Ryan Miller, very underrated last year.
Made the
well.
touchdown catch, against the Chiefs. They should have went for 2.
I know Raheem Jarrett. Raheem Jarrett's been here for a little bit. I know they're still kind of holding out hope for him. So we'll just have to see, what happens. But I think 1 through 4, you feel very confident in, and you have other guys in that mold that can step in if needed.
Yeah, I mean, the top 4 are all set, but it is an absolute dogfight for. I think the Bucs have to keep 6 just based on the talent alone. And if they put Chris Godwin on the PUP list or injured reserve, that opens a spot as well. But I was trying to like do the math in my head or try to kind of piece together this puzzle, because let's remember Sterling Shepard was on the practice squad last year to begin the season. I think he's going to be around regardless because, hey, let's face it, he's good friends with Baker Mayfield, and it's not a bad idea to keep your starting quarterback a happy person. So I think he's going to be around. Man, it's tough with the Johnsons, with Tez Johnson. That's where special teams comes into play as well. But I definitely don't envy Jason Light with this decision, because Rakim Jarrett too is a guy like, to me, he kind of reminds me of like Tyler Johnson a little bit. Like I thought Tyler Johnson was going to be more for the Bucs, and ultimately he was, and he's actually carving out a pretty good second act with the Rams. But we had that moment against the Saints in the playoffs in 2020. But I was waiting for a little bit more from Tyler Johnson, and never happened. And I feel like we're getting that with Rakim Jarrett. I know he was an undrafted free agent, but could just never stay healthy, never really get an opportunity based on all the talent in front. But there's a lot of good. I don't think the Bucs are going to be able to stash all of them on the practice squad. I think one of those guys is going to end up on another team just based on the competition in that room.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I wouldn't be surprised if they still add to that room. If something comes available, it wouldn't shock me. But they have a really good group. I think you're excited about the upside of it. I think it has a lot of potential, and hopefully, guys can stay healthy, and we'll just have to see. I think, you mentioned Sterling Shepard. It wouldn't surprise me, like, if he starts the year again on the practice squad. That wouldn't shock me at all. And you keep Trey Palmer, maybe, keep one of these other guys on the roster. Cameron Johnson, maybe they keep both Tez and Cameron on the team and go it that way, and kind of give them a little bit more leeway as far as the return opportunities, and see who makes the most of it. And then once Chris comes back, then you make a decision there. Yeah,
that's a down the road type of problem for the Bucs for sure. Got another super chat from Mike Wells. Thank you for this $2 super chat. Who says, really curious if you guys think Devin Culp will be tight end too. Well, great timing, because we're going to talk about the tight end room for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which really didn't change. The Bucs didn't address tight end in free agency. They didn't go about it in the draft. Still Cade Otton, Payne Durham, and Devin Culp, who had a nice end of the season. Certainly wasn't incredible, but put it together towards the end of the year. Cade Otton it's apples to oranges because it's offense and defense. But to me, Cade Otton is going to be like Anthony Nelson, where he's just going to be around for a very long time, quite reliable. I know he is a free agent after this season. He's going to tight end U this year, which I'm very excited about. There hasn't really been a lot of Bucs representation at tight end U besides Gronk, co-hosting and stuff like that. But give me your thoughts about the tight ends. Can Cade Otton elevate his game? What are your thoughts on Payne Durham? And can Devin Culp be another arsenal weapon for Josh Grizzard in the offense this year?
Yeah, I think if you follow me at Real Buck Stock, you will know that I'm a big component of K Dotton. I loved him coming out of the draft that year in 22. I thought, Bucks could have easily taken him on, the second or the third round. Like I was really high on him, but to get him in the fourth round, such a steal. And that makes sense comparing him to Anthony Nelson, who is also a fourth round pick. They're just very consistent at what they do. They're not going to give you a lot of flair, but they just do their job. And he's really improved. Like the blocking aspects of his game got really better last year. I thought he was more consistent there. And, for the most part, he's very reliable in the catching department, and he does a good job of just finding space underneath to be an outlet for Baker Mayfield. So I'm really excited to see what he can do in his, let's see, what is he going? Year 4, I think.
Yeah, fourth year.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's in a contract year. I mean, I think he could do very well, especially with all the attention that the receivers are going to get, the running backs, etc. Yeah. The backups, as far as like Devin Culp, I would like to see him challenge for that tight end 2 position. I think Payne Durham is a very solid tight end 3 that you bring in to help you in the run game, to help you do some different things in the red zone. And then O'Keefe, it just remains like if they want to utilize a fullback option, because really, I think that's where he's best suited for. I know he does a lot of things on, special teams. That all plays into it. But with Devin, I think that upside is there. Like he could be that true F tight end, the moving tight end, where he can do a lot of things differently than what you have above him as far as the athleticism and the vertical options. So yeah, I think the potential for Devin is really up there. The tight end room as a whole is probably a little bit weaker on as far as depth, because you just don't know what these guys can do other than Cade on. We saw little glimpses of it when Cade was out, but it's a room that I think can be consistent and not hurt you in that regard.
Yeah, I thought Payne Durham and Devin Culp did a pretty good job when Cade Otton was out for a little bit. I almost wish you could combine like the physicality and the blocking of Payne Durham with the receiving prowess that Devin Culp has and make them one tight end. I think that would be a good combo right there. I don't know if Culp is going to challenge this year for the tight end 2 after Payne Durham, just because we know he can be a pretty good receiver, but I don't know if he could be that, line up on the line of scrimmage type of tight end and really get in the dirt and get physical. I think that's going to be the next maturation of his game as he goes into year 2. But we'll see, in training camp, if he's able to show that he can block a little bit more. I think, he certainly has the speed at tight end. And Kadon, he's clutch too. Like, remember he scored that game-winning touchdown in Tom Brady's last season. He seems to, have some big-time moments. And that's what you need from Kadon, because, we talked about how great these running backs are and Baker and obviously the wide receivers. The reality is there's just not going to be a ton of targets for these tight ends because you're going to want to go to Mike and Chris and Emeka Egbuka. And that's fine. The Bucs don't need, certainly you would like to have Rob Gronkowski, but they don't need like their Gronk in this offense specifically, because that's not how they're wired. They weren't as good of a running team, when Gronk was here. And Gronk said himself, I'm a blocking tight end, baby. That was his line over and over again. So while I do think the tight ends are the weakest group, they're not like a terrible group. It's just, the sum of all the parts of all the other positions kind of puts the tight ends in this room. I also think Payne Durham, curious to get your thoughts on this. I thought he was pretty good in the red zone, where he can be a Cam Brate type of red zone player, where like maybe he's not getting it done in between the 20s, but Payne Durham to me is a good option in the red zone.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's someone that they can utilize if need be. And with the usage of the running game and how Grizzard wants to call it, there's going to be a lot more. I think you're going to see a lot more outside runs in this unit, where a lot more tossing plays, a lot of moving parts to get defenses going one way and trying to get the edge and try to get outside to create those explosives. But yeah, Payne, I think, can be that type of guy that you can use in the red zone, use in play action situations, and hopefully, catch some touchdowns. But again, he's not going to be that first call because they have so many other guys that are going to be the main targets. But definitely, if they get in like a goal to goal situation, he can be someone there that can create a mismatch or two.
We got one more position to talk about, and we know these guys like to eat, so this is a good time to talk about our friends over at Walk-Ons.
What an amazing comeback, Coach.
You're not kidding. I mean, we did lose the game badly, but coming to Walk-Ons afterward, the team got a much-needed win off the field.
Walk-Ons for the win.
Shout out to Walk-Ons. There are 3 in the Tampa Bay area, one over in Lakeland, another in Wesley Chapel, and a third in Midtown Tampa, not far at all from Raymond James Stadium. And now that all the other sports are done, we are counting down the clock until football returns. Love the atmosphere at Walk-Ons. There's thousands of TVs, great food, fantastic drinks. They have a ton of happy hour specials as well, including all day on Tuesday, but you can still go today. They have happy hour from 3 p.m. until close. So go get some great deals. Enjoy all of their great food over at Walk-Ons. And yes, sports season is done right now. Congrats to the Thunder winning the NBA Finals last night. But apparently the Rays became like the best team in baseball, and they just win nonstop. So go catch a Rays game. Go watch. I think there's some soccer going on right now. And then, of course, when the Bucs are playing, check out your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Watch them over at Walk-Ons. Eat like a winner, drink like a champ at Walk-Ons. I think the Bucs have a championship offensive line all across the board. We know how great Tristan Wirfs is, but of course Luke Gedeke as well, Graham Barton at center, and Ben Bredesen and Cody Mauch, who I think each got married this weekend. So congrats to Ben Bredesen and congrats to Cody Mauch as well. But I think this is going to be the driving force of the offense, Michael, because they're going to be able to do anything. They can pass block. They can run block. They're going to impose their will on some teams this year.
Yeah, I think, we talked about most important position. It starts with Baker Mayfield and the quarterback, which is why we probably started with that first. But when you talk about probably most important position group, it's offensive line. Like, you got to have a very good offensive line, and the Bucs definitely have a top 5 unit. The starters are set. You have a really good group from left tackle to right tackle. Your interior of the offensive line, I think, should be able to take major steps forward. Cody Mauch going from year 1 to year 2 last year, he showed significant strides, and now you're hoping the same thing happens with Graham Barton. If that does, and these guys continue to ascend, that's not only going to help Ben Bredesen be even better because he doesn't have to worry about Graham Barton as much. He can kind of focus in on what he has to do on his side. So there's just a lot of there's just so much upside with this offensive line, even though they've been playing, all of them have seasons under their belt, which is great. And, Luke Gedeke at right tackle has been awesome. Probably going to do a film study on him coming up here on the channel. I mean, he's just awesome. And Tristan Wirfs, best tackle in the league. So to have stud bookends on your offensive line, that's a huge thing that I think a lot of fans don't appreciate or not see how important that is, because having that, it just allows you to do so much as far as an offense goes. So I think they're in really good hands, and that starting 5 is going to be one of the best if healthy.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. Of course, Tristan Wirfs gets the headlines, but I legitimately think Luke Gedeke, and I'm hoping, obviously we all want Tristan Wirfs to win Protector of the Year. It's a new award for the offensive line, but I hope they're able to kind of market it the right way. And I think Tristan Wirfs, if he wins the award, he's certainly going to be in the running for it. I hope that it will impact the rest of the offensive line as well. Well, they'll be able to get their shine. I mean, Graham Barton, I think, has the potential to be an all-pro center eventually. Probably not this season, but now that Frank Ragnow is retired, there's an opening for someone to be an elite NFC center. Now that Jason Kelsey's been retired for a couple of years as well. But I think the world of Graham Barton. The Bucs obviously like Ben Bredesen, that's why he's back. Cody Mauch, I think he's worked on his body the last 2 years, and he's he's pretty hardcore and gnarly as an offensive lineman as well. And I think when he gets to the second level, he can really be at his best. But I'm with you as well. I'm very excited to see this tape you're going to have of Luke Goedeke, because to me, the offensive line certainly is the unsung hero itself, but specifically, Luke Goedeke is the guy that has to deal with the best pass rusher every week because they don't want to line him up against Tristan Wirfs. And, game in and game out, he goes balls to the wall. He loves defending Baker Mayfield when someone tries to give him a hard time. Jason Light picked him. He's the guy that he wants backing him up in a fight if he gets into a street fight. Luke Goedeke, I hope, can get into, I essentially call it the circle of trust of like, there's only so many household offensive lineman names that NFL fans know. Tristan Wirfs is certainly it. Lane Johnson is certainly in it. And I think Luke Goedeke may have the potential to get in as well with another standout season. And, he's one of those guys as well that is going into a contract year. It's him, Zion, and Cade Otton. Between those three, I'm putting Luke Goedeke at the top of the player that I would want signed to an extension first.
Yeah, I think, out of those you mentioned, like he's just been very consistent, and he's gotten better every year. So I think you want to see him continue to show that progression, and hopefully he can earn, himself like a Pro Bowl, honors, whether that's, as a backup, probably going to be a backup because you have Lane Johnson there as your right.
He's got to lock down until he retires. He's going to have to wait his turn a little bit, but it's on the horizon for Luke.
Yeah, but maybe he can get in as a Pro Bowl alternate. I don't know if they would pick Tristan Wirfs and him to make the Pro Bowl, so it's kind of probably it's tough for him, but I can see him eventually being that Pro Bowl tackle because he's got that type of upside, and you just want to continue to see him progress. It's crazy how he went from a player that the fans didn't like at all because he just wasn't good at guard. And you thought he might be on the way out, but he starts that last game of the year at tackle, and everything from there just kind of clicked, and he's been sensational.
Yeah, it's been an incredible story arc for Luke Goedeke. You almost forget about that, that Steelers game where it was not going well for him, and now he's playing at a Pro Bowl level at right tackle. So wide receiver might be the deepest, but offensive line might be. I mean, physically they are the strongest. There's bench row records headlined by Tristan Wirfs and Luke Goedeke, but it's a great group. Obviously the chemistry is there. Everybody. Zion McCollum came on the show and he's like, the offensive linemen, like they would take a bullet for each other, and he's like, I want the rest of the team to be like that. So it's going to be really cool to see what we get from the entire offense and specifically the offensive line as well. Michael, this has been a ton of fun talking about the Bucs offense with you. Please tell everybody watching the show where they can see all of your content. You have an awesome YouTube channel. I highly recommend it to everybody. But please plug anything that you got going on.
Yeah, you can catch us at Real Bucs Talk. Just check it out on YouTube. Check us out on Twitter. We're also on Telegram now, so if you want to just talk with us anytime, you can join our Telegram, and we have updates and stuff like that, but you can chat and offer questions or whatever. But on YouTube, don't really have any planned content right now. We're probably going to have, like I mentioned earlier, probably Luke Goedeke, probably get some more film studies coming up here, especially in the month of July as we get towards preseason, and kind of talk over some players and try to get some things, going. So really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah. Can't wait to check it out. So make sure you follow him over at Real Bucs Talk. Check out the YouTube channel as well. And also, if you're not already doing so, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment as well on this video. Let us know who you think or what position is the deepest for the Bucs on offense. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the defense and the depth that they have on that side of the football. So that'll do it for us on today's show. For Michael Pless, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you soon for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.